Audience, welcome to Viewpoint from Overseas. I am your host, Misbah Azam. Today I have with me a very special guest. He is a public intellectual, a journalist, very famous journalist in Pakistan. You see a lot of his TV appearances in Pakistan television. So with me is my friend, Mr. Farrukh Khan Pitafi. Farrukh, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm fine, sir. How about you?
Just goes on. We are hanging in there, and we are very anxious to listen from you. My audiences, they always want to hear insiders like you who know and can analyze Pakistan's situation. So, Farrukh, let me start with a very simple question to you. How do you see election 25th of July 2018?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Saab, for this opportunity. I think that I am satisfied, even though there was a lot of speculation about people rigging. The problem was that we never saw any evidence. We kept on asking for evidence. There were insinuations. There were, this implication that somehow people are being approached. But whenever I approach somebody and I ask them, where exactly is the evidence? Did you record anything? Did you ask for any personal ID? For example, people kept on saying that they were being approached by the aliens or extraterrestrials. By that, they meant the security or intelligence agencies of Pakistan. I kept on asking them that there must be some positive photo ID, some kind of record of conversation. But we were never given any evidence at all. After that, on the election day, the proceedings that I have personally witnessed went very smoothly. In the end, of course, there was a technical crash when RTS, the result transmission service or system, it actually broke down. And since then, everybody is like adding conspiracy to conspiracy, and they're thinking that maybe there was some foul play. So, if you ask me, I am satisfied because if we compare this election with the previous ones, if you count all the elections, Dr. Saab, you will never find one election in the entire history of Pakistan where a loser or the vanquished actually conceded defeat. Everybody kept on saying that the election was stolen. And remember that there were intense times when the country actually fell apart, where the country broke into two halves just because of not accepting the results. So I think that that culture will stay in this country. We are evolving democracy. But when it comes to the procedural part of democracy, I am very satisfied.
Actually, in one sense, this time they do accept the result, although they say we have concerns and all that, but they want to move on. Do you see that happening?
Well, I didn't quite catch the question, but if you're talking about accepting the result and yet protesting, honestly, I see a contradiction there. I don't know, how do you accept a result and then say that we are going to protest? If you want to accept the result, you have to accept the result. So those parties that are protesting today are actually the parties that ruled Pakistan or bits or parts of Pakistan for the past 5 years. Those parties, must believe that they have done something great for the country. But there's always this sense of anti-incumbency in Pakistan. There was a time back in 1990s when the assemblies didn't actually complete their term. So it usually was 3 years period. And there was a time when assemblies were being restored and the democracy was being restored in this country. There were people who who said that maybe it is appropriate to fix the time limit of an assembly for 3 years rather than 5. But eventually they have settled for 5. Right now, people must have this entire incumbency feeling, and that's why they have gone out and voted. If Dr. Saab, there is rigging or widespread rigging as it is being implied these days, frankly, then you don't have a hung parliament. You don't get the opposition party something like, or the opposition party doesn't get 67 or 70 seats. This time it is half and half opposition, half government. So you have to realize that if there was rigging, it was done by somebody who was not at all good at his job, because they fumbled, they actually bungled, they couldn't actually manage the kind of manipulation that was needed. So I am not convinced that there was rigging in the country.
Okay, so these things we will be talking in coming days and all. It is actually we already moved on from that phase. Now let's go to the real issues. Now we have a new government. It's a very good thing that it is a third consecutive transition to the democracy. So now comes the, let's begin with the international relations. The challenges which the new government is going to face. Recently, there was a statement from the Secretary of State of United States, and he is saying that they are keeping their eyes open so that the IMF funds would not go to paying the debts of the Chinese investors and all that. But Farrukh, as far as I know, what my understanding is that the loan which countries get from the IMF are not for the debt rescheduling or anything, or for the paying of the debts. How you comment on this comment from the Secretary of State of United States?
Well, Dr. Saab, it is quite interesting that you brought up Trump administration, because it is quite an interesting phenomenon. The speed with which Trump administration keeps on changing its position. For example, with China, there was a time when Donald Trump was saying that they are going to, declare China a currency manipulator. Then we saw that after his meeting with Xi Jinping, the position changed. And then, since they were working on North Korea and they were trying to find a solution there, they kept on actually extending olive branch to China. Something seems to have changed in recent days, because they have once again started hedging their bets. They have started once again investing in America and India relationship. So at this moment, it seems that it is a momentary phase when this statement was made. Pakistan, of course, has to face a huge problem regarding its economy. At this moment, there is need for cash, foreign currency in our reserves. I heard Asad Umar saying that we need something like $12 billion. So that aspect is there. But regarding this rescheduling or sending money to China, I don't think that is that will happen. Today, Asad Umar actually made another pledge, and that is quite significant. Asad Umar said that we are going to actually, disclose all the TORs of CPEC. That is important because during PMLN's time, the terms of reference, the papers, the details were not made public. If that is made public, IMF will be able to see where the money goes. Usually what happens is, when you go to IMF, they ask you to come back with a homegrown package. You have a plan, you hand it over to them, they actually vet it, and then they release the fund or start releasing the fund. At this moment, what will happen if Pakistan decides to go to the IMF? It will take all the papers, it will take all the information, and there, after vetting its own homegrown plan, they will actually get the money. So I'm not worried at all regarding CPEC. I think whatever Mike Pompeo said, it was essentially in relation to US-China relationship and US-India relationship. Because in New Delhi, in South Block, there are people who are very happy the moment a statement comes from the US Secretary of State or President of America bashing or criticizing China or for that matter Pakistan. Ji, Dr. Sir.
Ji, so you are saying it is very interesting point you raised that basically like we say in Punjabi, if I may say it in Punjabi, Kendi Teenu par Sunandi Nunu. So this is something like that. That is, she's yelling at the daughter, but actually she's actually having the daughter-in-law listen to that, right? I mean, so you say it is something like that happening, if in the big picture. So the CPAC, the CPAC. The movement of CPAC now, how you see it that when governments will change, I mean, there is some sort of impression somewhere, especially from the previous governments, that maybe it will slow down or something like that. How you see CPAC coming up now?
Dr. I think CPAC has been portrayed negatively internationally as well. And somehow some rocket scientists or some genius kept on portraying it as a strategic, project. I think it has more to do with money. I think it has more to do with the access to markets. And if we want to explore a bigger market, China is very big. And this part of, China that is to be connected with CPAC, it was inaccessible from other routes. It wasn't that easy to bring resources from one place to another on this side. So I think they have gone for this project, and as long as the need is there, it is actually pull-driven, not push-driven, project. So as long as there is demand or that there is need, this project will continue. The only problem with the previous government, Dr. Saab, was that it had a lot of secrecy regarding the project. The second thing, and that is very important, is somehow we somewhere became one-trick pony. Instead of talking about many projects that we can explore, for example, this is a north-south project, right?
Yes.
Talking about Pakistan geography.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about east-west project or trade corridors. I think Pakistan's future actually lies in exploring its potential as a trade hub. So you'll have to play that role as well. If you start exploring more options, I think the future of CPAC will improve. It will not go down. And regarding China's ambition, I recently saw this report or this briefing by The Economist, where they are actually saying that there are aspects that might frighten people. My concern is that read 5,000 years of Chinese history. China is not a colonizer. China's worldview is very different from the West's. China believes that it is at the center of the universe, the center of the world, and every other country is a kind of tributary that actually feeds resources into China rather than China extending itself beyond its borders. I think at this moment, seeing BRI, that is Belt and Road Initiative, or its pilot project CPAC, in a negative light, doesn't serve anybody. I think it has a future, and let us face it, we keep on dividing everything into civilizations, into races, into cultures, into... Certainly, we are all human beings, and if we have some semblance of poverty alleviation, improvement of resources, improvement of lives, that is a welcome step, sir.
Let me ask you this, Farrukh. I do agree with you that, of course, China's past doesn't show that they have some sort of expansionist policies and all. But world's concern, the way I see it, if you put yourself in the legislatures of America or the West, they see it. Now China is sitting at the gateway of the oil supply, gateway of the Strait of Hormuz, and they are watching watching it. That is a concern for India. That is a concern for the West. How you address this concern? Why they shouldn't have this concern, Farrukh?
Well, Dr. Saab, let me tell you, I believe in the what Barack Obama used to call audacity of hope. I believe that if you really have firm faith in the ideal of democracy, it can spread. The biggest problem with China is that people think that since it is not a democracy, since it is a socialist country, it is a controlled polity. The values it reflects or projects might not be germane to the Western value system. Frankly, these concerns can be reversed. You can see India as a challenge as well. The speed with which India is getting radicalized should also concern the West. If they think that they can build China as a counterweight to India, build India as a counterweight to China. What happens if India becomes radicalized, loses touch with its democracy and starts doing exactly the same thing? If you want to reform China, you'll have to engage it instead of portraying it as some kind of enemy. Remember, this entire thing goes back to this worldview that was projected by Samuel P. Huntington, who said there is going to be a clash of civilizations, and then there are allied civilizations like India, and then there are Muslims and China. Frankly, I think that his definition, or the definition he borrowed from Toynbee of civilization, was very reductionist. I believe, as I've said it in the past as well, that there is only one civilization, that is human civilization. That means that our motivations, our desires, our needs, our dreams, all are the same. We might have different approaches to it. So if you want to convince China that it shouldn't be confronting, the best idea maybe is not to invest in a balance of power framework where India becomes equally big, and then India might actually start doing exactly the same kind of thing that you are fearing China might do. The best way is to emphasize the value of collective security, the value of working with every country. So in that context, if a country is investing in purely economic matters, I am not going to worry about it. I don't think America should be worrying about it. The problem is that there is a lot of approach of the Indian pundits in American market as well, American thought market, so to speak. And they, of course, keep on projecting what is being perceived in India or New Delhi. The problem is at this moment, India is in pain because it is supposed to be a secular country, and a right-wing extremist kind of government is actually ruling their nation. So their interest of long-term investment in some kind of collective security framework has gone down. And now they are actually operating on a very reactionary way. So that becomes a problem for the region and the entire world. The world has to see it for what it is. If you think one country poses a threat, then other countries also pose a threat. If you think that one country has promised, then you have to believe other countries also have promised, and you can convince them to be more democratic. Dr. Saab.
Yeah. So that brought me to my next question, that all the strategic analysis you did of the relationship between the countries, how Prime Minister Imran Khan, how capable he is, or you believe that he doesn't have to be have the capability because somebody else is anyways running the government. The de facto running the foreign policy, if not the government. Sorry to interrupt you, Farrukh. You go ahead, please.
I was interrupting you. But no. First of all, you said Prime Minister Imran Khan. And let me remind you that for 22 years, we had actually forgotten that there was any potential in the man to be Prime Minister because he kept on losing repeatedly. And that perhaps was also a reason why his response, his reflection on foreign policy and so many other aspects were also very reactionary, or one thought that they were reactionary. and then, of course, he was encircled by people like Shri Mazari Sahiba, Dr. Shri Mazari, who is also supposed to be quite rigid on foreign policy and security issues. But with due respect, once you enter the power corridor and you realize what is happening, you start reconciling with truth or facts. I think Imran Khan has spoken in India when he was being asked about the proscribed organizations. And he said that, look, at this moment I'm out of power and they are actually very powerful in my country. So I'm not going to say something that actually, brings me down or leads it to my death. What I'm going to do is, I can promise you one thing. At the moment I take over, such groups are not going to be a problem for India. We are hoping that he actually walks the talk. And if that is the standard, then you would think that being an insurgent is quite different from being a ruler. Once he becomes a ruler, I think he has the kind of charisma or articulation or ability to communicate that perhaps he might be able to help Pakistan cultivate a better image with the world powers, especially the US.
Yeah, because you say because of his understanding of the Western culture and those things would help him doing that. That is your point, basically?
Dr. Saab, if you read his biography, you realize that he has spent a lot of time in the West as well.
Yeah, I read his book actually. I read his book.
Yeah. So you'll appreciate the fact that he is quite a cosmopolitan man when it comes to his own lifestyle. It becomes very difficult when you actually think that the same man has been saying things that don't really reconcile with his lifestyle or his experience. But the fact is that I always thought that he had quite poor image of or impression of the Pakistani people. That maybe doesn't understand that people don't want that kind of radicalism or populism, so to speak. But frankly, now that he has been elected, his first speech was indicative of very positive outlook. I don't know where to actually put it right now. I will wait for the day he takes over as the Prime Minister of Pakistan. And then I will wait what he says, what he does. If he makes mistakes, if he does things that are not that encouraging, of course we are going to criticize that. But till that time, I am ready to give him a chance to at least prove himself that he is capable of changing and he is capable of delivering as well.
Just last question, Farrukh. Let's going back to a little bit domestic side. Pakistan Television Corporation, how you see the future of that in a PTI government?
Well, Dr. Saab, that is also quite interesting question. You know that I've been working for PTV, and this is not my first experience with PTV. I was with PTV 20 years ago, and then I left. The problem, sir, is that it has had a lot of bureaucracy, and then it immediately falls under the Information Ministry. And usually the Information Ministers believe that they have to dictate terms. But Imran Khan actually promised one thing that I'm actually looking forward to. First, he said that we are going to, or at least his allies or his associates said that they are going to abolish the Information Ministry. That perhaps is not possible because there are a lot of people who are employed there, part of bureaucracy. But then he said that we are going to make PTV autonomous. If that happens, Dr. Saab, you cannot just believe the kind of power PTV has. It is the only terrestrial channel. It reaches the whole of Pakistan. It reaches everywhere. And whether anybody acknowledges it or not, what you say actually has tremendous impact. I remember those days when I started working there and I started calling Taliban terrorists. We kept on first, we started getting threats. After that, even requests, please, for heaven's sake, don't do it. And then even from the government side, but we didn't actually flinch and we kept on doing it. Eventually, everybody started accepting Taliban as terrorists, or at least Pakistani chapter of Taliban as terrorists. So we have this incredible potential. Frankly, I don't believe in public-owned enterprises. I believe that most of such organizations should be owned by the private companies. But then there are conspiracy theories in this country. This group is anti-Pakistan or that group is anti-Pakistan. So I don't want to go in a direction that causes more friction. But I'm hoping that the channel at least becomes autonomous, so that you don't have to worry the way all of a sudden picture of Imran Khan disappears from the news bulletins, and sometimes other politicians disappear. That is not very constructive. I think that in coming days, there's a lot of hope. Even the current lot that is actually heading the channel, they promise a lot of hope because they have tried to improve the standard. But there's a lot to be done. Let us hope that in coming days things improve.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Farrukh. This was a very nice and educational comments you made. Ladies and gentlemen, Farrukh is always very balanced analysis he presents, and we all should, whenever I want to hear something, what really happens, sometime I just simply tune to Farrukh's channel or I simply talk to him. Of course, not all of you have that opportunity. So you should be watching him on Pakistan television. Even with the government channel, he tries to be very balanced, and I never hear him for no reason supporting the government, which is usually the attitude of the government channels. So Farrukh, once again, thank you very much for your time. And ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Misbah Azam. This is your show, Viewpoint from Overseas.